Good morning, everybody. We're live here from the birdhouse, and we are in November already. And so we've got a birding update here of some different birds that you can expect to see in your backyard, some other things you might see as you're out and about. And we'll share some of your photos that you guys have sent in as well. So, as always, we love to know who's on. You can say hi in the comments. If you've got questions, you can throw those in there too. And we love to know what kind of things you're seeing. So definitely let us know any kind of sightings you have in your backyard, at your feeders, all that good stuff. So we will get going. First of all, if you are local here to the Rochester area, we do have a suet sale going on now. All of our suet is always Baker's Dozen, where if you buy 12, you get one for free. But right now, we just started yesterday a suet sale where if you buy 4, you get one for free. So if you usually buy things by the case, and most things come in cases of 12 as far as the suet goes, now instead of getting just 1 suet for free, you would get 3 for free. So for every 4 suets you buy, you'll get 1 for free. So that's going on for a week. That will end on November 8th. And this also includes the seed logs, which are super popular in all of our suet. So suet bells, seed bells, the suet, the suet balls, all that stuff is all on sale. So you can stock up now for the colder months. It's starting to get a little bit chillier out there. And every day our seed is on sale. Anything 20 pounds and over is always buy 4 bags, get 1 free. And you don't need to take it all at once. You can just prepay for it and store it here, and we will keep track of what we owe you, and you can pick it up at your convenience. So that's always going on here. So we've got the seed sale and suet sale happening right now. So in general, in your backyards, these are some birds to look out for. This isn't going to be a feeder bird, but you might see them hopping around in your trees or shrubs, or if you've got your plants growing tall and you haven't chopped them down, things like goldenrod, or if you have asters, or if you have any kind of, black-eyed Susans or plants like that that have gone to seed, keep an eye out for things like golden crowned kinglet and ruby crowned kinglet in your backyard. This time of the year, they're passing through. They kind of act like warblers. Well, they'll hop around pretty quickly. So if you see something that almost looks like a chickadee with their movements, you know how chickadees can kind of hop around in the little branches and on the tops of plant stems and things like that. It could just very well be one of these kinglets, either golden crown kinglet or ruby crown kinglet. Another bird to be on the lookout for on trees in your backyards is going to be the yellow-bellied sapsucker. They're a migratory woodpecker. They're not really the type of woodpecker you would see coming to your suet feeder, but they will be seen in the area usually through the winter. We sometimes get sightings, but right now they're migrating through for the most part, and so you might just happen upon those in your backyard on the sides of your trees. I saw one of these this morning underneath my bird feeder. This is the white-throated sparrow, and they are also migratory, and they will stay here in the winter months, and you can find them especially underneath feeders. If you've been feeding anything with sunflower seeds in it or millet, they'll clean up underneath your feeders. Both the white-throated sparrow and the larger white-crowned sparrow. Be on the lookout for both of those, with the white-throated sparrow usually being the more common of the two in backyards. And then red-breasted nuthatches, they are more common as it gets colder out. They like suet, they like peanuts, they like the sunflower hearts. This looks like a picture of one that's eating from our Finch Favorite blend. It's at a Niger feeder right there. And that Finch Favorite blend has ground up sunflower hearts in it, which the nuthatches will eat, especially the red-breasted nuthatches. Chickadees like it too. And of course, with our Finch Favorite blend, you'll get things like goldfinches and house finches. You might have purple finches around that are eating from that as well. But be on the lookout for also these red-breasted nuthatches as they start to kind of grow in numbers in the area. So usually they're a little bit smaller than your typical white-breasted nuthatch. Also, if you've got your Niger feeders out, check out these pine siskins, because you might see them coming to your feeders too. They look like a very stripy style of goldfinch. So we'll have them here all winter long. And of course, dark-eyed juncos. So if you're seeing some little birds hopping under your feeder, they could very well be the dark-eyed juncos. They could be the white-throated sparrows. The dark-eyed juncos are the gray birds with the white belly, and they will be here all winter long. People are reporting blackbirds still, and this morning I saw some red-winged blackbirds, and there's still been some grackles around, but it seems like they are starting to move down. They're kind of on their way out. They're going down south, so you might still have them in your yard for a little bit longer. But there's other blackbirds too, like this rusty blackbird, and sometimes you can see them in the groups of other blackbirds. So you might see a whole flock of the red-winged blackbirds with the grackles, and brown-headed cowbirds can be in there too. But be on the lookout for something like this. This is a rusty blackbird, not nearly as common as the other ones, but you might happen upon one of those, especially in a mixed flock of blackbirds this time of the year. And these are the other characters that you can find migrating through the common grackle and red-winged blackbird. So a lot of red-winged blackbirds look like this right now. They're in their non-breeding plumage, or they could be juveniles. And so they don't look that like a very, very dark black this time of the year all the time. But usually you can see some kind of a color on their wing. So red-winged blackbirds, grackles are still around, but they don't seem to be in numbers as big as they were a couple weeks ago even. So it seems like they're on their way out of the area. What you might start to see also in your backyard are more birds of prey, and especially as the temperatures drop and it's harder for these birds to find their prey items, they will come to backyard feeders. Things like the Cooper's hawk are super common. This is the most common bird of prey that you will find in your backyard, going after songbirds at the feeder. And it can be hard to tell the difference between the two most common birds of prey that'll come to backyard feeders. The Cooper's hawk is the most common, but then there's also one called the sharp-shinned hawk. And if you look at the two, they look kind of similar. Their colors are very similar, but there are some differences. The Cooper's hawk tends to be larger, although there is some size overlap, so that can be a little bit difficult to tell the difference with just that characteristic alone. The Cooper's hawk is smaller than the red-tailed hawk usually, so they're not as big as those large red-tailed hawks that we have. But then they also have more of a squarish head. So their head, usually you can see that there's some kind of a squarish shape to it, and they have a rounded tail. So sometimes you can see these characteristics. Sometimes you can only make out maybe one of those characteristics. But the Cooper's hawk has the rounded tail, squarish head, and then the sharp-shinned hawk has the total opposite. They have a roundish head and a square tail. So you can see their head is much more round, and then also their tail isn't rounded but goes pretty straight. So those are some ways you can tell the difference. Sharp-shinned hawks are also quite small, so they're almost strikingly small. I would say they're about the size of a mourning dove usually. So if you see a really, really small bird of prey at your feeders, that's going to be a sharp-shinned hawk. But unless it's something super small, it's probably a Cooper's hawk. So don't be surprised if you do see these in your backyard, especially throughout the winter. It is totally normal, totally common. And if you want to kind of have the hawks go elsewhere, really the only thing you can do is take your feeders down for a few days. As the birds disperse, the hawks will also disperse. They might come back after a while, but that's really the best thing you can do is just take your feeders down for a bit. You remove their food source, and then they'll go elsewhere. So and then this is what their juvenile plumage looks like. So both the Cooper's hawk and the sharp-shinned hawk, their adult plumage is kind of a grayish color on their back, and then their front is more of an orangish color, but their juvenile plumage both look like this, quite brown with a striped tail. And so we have both of those plumages you can find throughout the winter. The juveniles wouldn't have their adult plumage until the spring. So those are some hawks that you can find in your backyards throughout the fall and winter months. And then there's other birds of prey that'll be making their way into the area. Short-eared owls are one. This isn't going to be a backyard bird unless you have a very specific type of backyard, but we have short-eared owls here in the winter months. They like wide open fields. So if you're familiar with birds of prey like northern harrier, the short-eared owl will go to those same kinds of habitats. So they like wide open fields where they can fly low and hunt for small mammals. And they will be here through the winter months. Some years there's a whole bunch, and there's been at least a couple spotted so far this season, but nothing in large numbers yet. So time will tell just where these owls show up and how many. So short-eared owls are really cool owl to watch during those dusk hours. To watch them hunt is really fun. If you're out by the water at all, there are different types of waterfowl you can find. Going out to Montezuma is a wonderful place to look for these birds. Anywhere around the lakes, around Irondequoit Bay, if you're local, are also fabulous places to check out some of these birds on the water. Things like pied-billed grebe, American coot, northern shoveler, which have that green head like a mallard, but they have a really, really wide bill, so they do look quite a bit different. Green-winged teal, which is a small little duck with a green head, with a little green patch on its head, and also kind of a cinnamon reddish color on their face. Another duck that you can find here. They're called green-winged teal because they do have a little green patch on their wing. You just can't see it in this picture here, but both the male and female will have that little green on the wing. Northern pintail, and the males have that nice long tail feather, and even American widgeon. So there's a really good diversity of birds that you can find by the water too, and they'll be here all winter long. We have a really good diversity of some different duck species, things like long-tailed ducks. The scoters are coming back, so you can find a good amount of birds by the water. Any kind of open water you can find during the winter, you will find some good birds there. And then some photos that you guys sent in. Here's a shorebird picture of a bird called the lesser yellowlegs, and it looks like it's stretching. This is a fun pose here. This was sent in by Mark. And then a Bonaparte's gull. So we've talked about gulls in the past. The two most common that you'll see in this area, and probably where you are too, depending on where you are. If you're in New York, the most common gulls we have here are the ring-billed gull and the herring gull. But especially in the winter, there are more gulls that you can find in the area. And there's certain spots you can go to see some different species, but this is one that was spotted at Irondequoit Bay by Mark J. called the Bonaparte's gull. And you can see it looks quite a bit different than your typical ring-billed gull because it has a thin black bill, and then it has that black smudge behind its eye. Usually they have quite pink legs, but the legs on this bird are quite orange. But this is a Bonaparte's gull, so different type of gull species than you would normally see here. So some really cool photos there of the Bonaparte's gull sent in by Mark. And then also he sent in these photos. He says the past week at the Canal Lock 32, some really neat bald eagle photos. And you can find bald eagles here all year round as well. Anywhere where there is open water where they can fish and hunt, you can usually find bald eagles. Around Irondequoit Bay is a great place to go in the wintertime, even if it does start to ice over, because those bald eagles will usually stand on the ice and kind of just hang out on the ice. But some really cool bald eagle photos here sent in by Mark. And then also some turkey vultures. He says turkey vultures at Letchworth State Park. Saw probably 50 last week migrating through the area. So turkey vultures, I've still seen some around, but they in general do go south for the winter. Every once in a while, you can see them here in the winter, but not usually. These are going to be one of the last birds to leave and first ones to come back in the spring. So when you see turkey vultures in the spring, you know that the warmer weather is on its way. But it looks like he came across a nice big group of them migrating. So some cool series of photos there sent in So yeah, if you guys have sightings or if you have questions, put them in the comments. It looks like there are some of you guys on here. Let's see. Stephania, if I'm saying that right, says good morning from Hamburg. Yeah, good morning. And Susie Q says, hello, I just found / subscribed to your channel yesterday. I am in Northeast Pennsylvania, so we have a lot of birds in common. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Absolutely. Yeah, we do. And in fact, kind of all along the East Coast, I mean, there's going to be differences about what birds you have and what birds come to your feeders. But as far as backyard feeder birds go on the East Coast of North America, they're not all that different. As you go further south, you guys might have, I don't know if you guys have black cap chickadees or there's Carolina chickadees, so the chickadees can be a little different. So there are differences, but there's we have a lot of birds in common too. So that's great. And I hope you get something out of the channel, even though you're not right in your neighborhood, but you're pretty close. So looks like that's everybody's comments and questions for the day. We'll be back on Tuesday with another broadcast. And until then, oh, it looks like we got one more comment that just popped in. Let's see. Sharon is on. She says, my goldfinch are so fun to watch. They're always fighting each other at the feeder. Yeah, usually people get flocks of goldfinches all at once. And so sometimes they're patient and can wait their turn, but it sounds like not the case at your feeder. They are fighting over the food. But we'll be back on Tuesday with another broadcast. So until then, have a great weekend and enjoy your birds, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.